Merhabalar, hepinize iyi günler diliyorum. Betim olarak yeni bir programımızı sizlere sunmaktan mutluluk duyuyoruz. Betim'in yeni serisi olan muhabBetim'de dünyanın daha güzel bir yer haline gelmesine katkıda bulunan bilim insanları, aktivistler, yazarlar ve sanatçıları ağırlayacağız. muhabBetim, Prenses Doktor Nisreen El-Hashemite ile birazdan başlıyor. Good day all. As we have announced it through our social media accounts, we will launch a new series in Betim. This new series of Betim, muhabBetim, meaning chit-chat, will host scientists, activists, authors, and artists from all around the globe who have made the significant contributions to make the world a better place. We will start our new series with Her Royal Highness Princess Dr. Nisreen El-Hashemite. Before we start our program, I would like to introduce you Dr. Nisreen very shortly. Her Royal Highness Princess Dr. Nisreen Binti Prince El-Sharif Muhammad bin King Faisal I is a direct descendant of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him. Her Hashemite origin is deeply rooted in the history, religion, politics, and education. Following in the steps of her ancestors and vowing to preserve the traditions of her family, Princess Dr. Nisreen not only dedicated herself to serving mankind, but also is the first royal princess qualified in science and medicine with a Bachelor of Biomedical Sciences, Masters of Science, medical degree, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Human Genetics. Her career started in 1995 at University of London Hospitals and Institutes, where she developed pre-implantation genetic diagnosis of single gene disorders. She continued her career at Harvard Medical School, where she developed accurate blood tests for early detection of major types of cancer. In 2007, Princess Nisreen left her scientific career at Harvard Medical School to devote herself to serving socioeconomic sustainable development in the world throughout the programs of Royal Academy of Science International Trust as its executive director. Dr. Nisreen is an internationally recognized scientist and scholar, a winner of awards in the fields of science, arts, literature, and humanitarian affairs, and author of several scientific papers, studies, and books. So, welcome, Dr. Nisreen, to our program, muhabBetim. We are so pleased and honored to have you here with us.
Thank you very much indeed for the introduction, and thank you for having me. It's a really pleasure to join you, and it is always a pleasure to join my colleagues from Turkey, a country that I have long history with, a present and a future.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me, and always proud of it and its people, and will continue to do the same. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we thank you all with all hearts. So let us start. I just prepared some small questions to guide our speech today. Could you please tell us about being a woman scientist in a royal family? What was your main motive to become a prominent scientist? And my personal question is, was being royal was it a minus or a plus for your journey in education and all scientific journey? Could you please tell us about this?
Thank you very much indeed, Maida. Well, first of all, allow me first to pay tribute to Professor Hakan Erten, who left us from this life with a great, amazing knowledge, science, and fingerprints that he will always be remembered. So let's dedicate the first muhabBet session or conversation to his soul.
Yeah,
and to the soul of all great scholars in Turkey and around the world. Now to the question. First of all, let's enjoy a cup of Turkish coffee.
Yeah, I prepared one, so
you know, and you can tell that my coffee cups are also Turk.
Yeah, I can tell. Beautiful.
Yeah. So we will enjoy the conversation over our Turkish coffee. So okay, so many people don't know about my background. They always look at the title.
Yeah.
And this is something sometimes it shows people that how interested in titles or not looking into the background of the person. As you may know, my grandfather Faisal,
Yeah.
the first of Iraq, he had two children, two boys. Ghazi, who was in military, and when Muhammad was born, my father, he wanted to direct him towards education and science. And that's why when in my grandfather's will, if he passed away, he would like Mustafa Kemal Atatürk to supervise my father's upbringing in Turkey, so to direct my father into education and science. And that's why my father grew up for a certain period of time in Turkey before moving into Egypt to pursue his education, and then after that in America for his PhD. My father was professor of management. He contributed a lot to education and science in the all around the world. Now, my mother is professor of Islamic law, graduate of Al-Azhar al-Sharif in Sharia, then pursued her degree in Islamic law. Now, to grow up in such an intellectual house, you will see that we always grew up to see Arab intellectuals, Muslim intellectuals, even foreign intellectuals, and the level of discussions or upbringing since we were kids. All of this directed us to appreciate education and knowledge more. Also, the first thing to know that we are descendant of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the first message of God came to the Prophet, Iqra, read. And also to learn how important is education and knowledge and science in Allah's eyes, which is that by knowing that the most repetitive word in the Holy Quran is science and its derivatives. So in fact, to see all of this directed us, when I say us, my three brothers who are older than me, and I'm the only girl and the youngest. So into education and science. Then it moved towards being the only girl and the youngest. So my brothers always wanted to teach me everything beautiful. So I am like, for them, their princess. Now forget about the title that we have, but I am their princess. So for example, each one of my brothers taught me something. The older one used to teach me mathematics, chemistry, physics, before even I went to school. The second one taught me about arts, about piano, music, about literature, poetry, painting, all of these things. The third one, he's an engineer, so he used to love engineering. So like he used to teach me how to do an electric circuit, like how to fix this, how to do that. So imagine I grew up into this. So this had an impact. But why to become a doctor and a scientist? I have allergy for pets. So, but I love pets. So imagine every time you get an allergy from the cat, as a child, you will play with the cat. What will happen? You will go to the doctor to give you an injection or whatever. My doctor was really kind. He had always this smile on his face. Like I never felt the pain. Even if I was in pain, I will forget the pain. And he used to give me a Kit Kat, the chocolate Kit Kat. And that wasn't only with me, but with all other children. So like imagine to see children going into the clinic crying, and then the moment the moment they see the doctor, they will become like smiling. So for me, that was a thing in my mind that, okay, I will become a doctor. And also I would like to become a pilot. I will become a doctor, so I will put a smile on people's faces. you know. And then I will become a pilot so I can reach any person all around the world. Of course, I couldn't be both. So I was so good in medicine, in all science. At the same time, I'm very good in literature and the humanities. But my passion from my heart is science. So this is why I chose to become a doctor. And thanks to my parents, and particularly my mother, who encouraged me a lot to fulfill my dream and to continue in science, and also my brothers, because each one of them has a degree in STEM, you know. So that's why I went to medicine and science. Then my obstacles, you said about the royal princess, everybody thinks, oh, to be a royal princess means like the red carpet is on the floor for you all day.
Exactly.
It will be like this if you will live like a princess, you know, people to do everything for you, and even to write your speeches, or to write your, or to tell, even to feed you with the knowledge or what you need to know. So for me, I was seeking the knowledge, I was seeking the education, I want to go and do this and that. But the mentality of human beings is not to accept a royal princess doctor. So I started applying. I was an A student with honors all my life, working hard.
Mashallah.
I remember the only time I was like in tears and I was upset from myself and I almost had depression because one day I got 18 over 20 in in physics exam. And how I couldn't answer this simple question, you know, like what happened to me? And you see, this is, you can tell the Miss Perfect, the
Yeah.
A student. So, or maybe the love to science. So I started going into applying for medical schools and scientific colleges, and all the time I was faced with the same thing. You are a royal princess, go and find another college that suits your image, your prestige, your family name, etc. But then I said to myself, you know, like, okay, I want to be a doctor. To be a princess, it's not a big deal. You know, you need to look at me about my qualification. Do I deserve to be a doctor or not? But unfortunately, it was the same obstacle everywhere. Till I said to one of the deans, you know, you will make history when accepting the first royal princess into medicine.
Yeah. Excellent.
And he liked it, and he said to me, I will be tough on you. I said, and I accept the challenge. Otherwise, I won't be the descendant of Hazrat Muhammad and Hazrat Ali.
Exactly.
You know, so I graduated with my 4 scientific degrees, you know, and with honor, and I made it. Now, it is beautiful. It is very difficult. God knows how many times I used to cry. God knows how many times I had to make my colleagues to accept me among them. Not because I am a princess, you need to look at me in a different way. And also I had to change a lot of my behavior to be accepted among the community. For example, like the driver to drop me to the university, or to drive my car by myself when I was in America, or in Britain to take the public transportation. So I had to act like them. Like for me, I mainly eat in a certain way, etc. But you know, I had to grab the sandwiches in certain way, to wrap the fish and chips in newspapers, you know, etc. And sometimes, you know, like if you don't have tissue, you know, like you will do like this. So if this will make me accepted among my colleagues, that's fine. So there are so many things like that. Even the level of the language, you know, I have to be more like them. And actually my colleagues loved it. And I loved it. I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
So I learned so many things, and I start to enjoy life more than being a royal princess. Like to be in public transportation where I can observe, where I can be with the people, where I can see, where I can use the time to read, you know, instead of driving or etc. To look at people, to get the courage, and sometimes to be inspired by the people, you know. So because at the end of the day, my work is to serve people. That's my work as a doctor. So that's in fact about a bit why I chose science or medicine, and some of the obstacles I faced, and still facing actually the same obstacle of my title in my life. You know, even I love myself the way I am. I love the way that I like cooking, but oh my God, if you speak among the elite society or among certain level of people, oh my God, the princess cook, you know, her food. Yes, I shop my food. I go to the supermarket to buy my food. I like to, when I want to meditate, you know, I enjoy, you know, ironing my clothes, for example, you know. So because I take everything out of my mind, and while ironing my shirts, I feel like, well, okay, the new idea came, or how to solve this issue. So, you know, like there is time to, there is a life is so beautiful, and the beauty of life is its simplicity. Now, some people might say, oh, how did you have the courage to do all of this, or to do, to continue, or to accept the challenges? My strength was, I have so many strengths in my life. Number one, I'm a very good believer in God. So if God gave me the power and gave me the right to do such thing, that's it. I will go on for it. The second thing, by learning from history. For example, from the seerah of Rasulullah, the seerah of Hazrat Ali, the seerah of Hazrat Khadija, Hazrat Hassan, Hussein, Zainab, ila akhiri, you know, like etc. So actually, when you learn the philosophy, you know, then, and you do what you love, and you love what you do, you will you will accept any challenge, and you will win. And I always believe that I am a winner, and I cannot be defeated. I'm free to do what I want to do. And this statement was from Muhammad Ali, the boxer. He's, you know, my role model, because I used to say, I'm free to be what I want to be. I don't want to be what you want me to be. If Allah created me free, then I will do whatever I want, you know, that is good for the people.
Yeah.
And I succeeded in my scientific career, in my medical career, and I hope that I'm still succeeding in my career with the Royal Academy of Science.
Yeah, hopefully. After you graduated from medical school, you pursued a PhD in human genetics. And I believe your graduate education coincided with the exciting early days of the Human Genome Project. So how did this popular perception of genetics affect your decision to study genetics? This is my second question.
Oh, thank you. Well, in fact, I wanted to be a surgeon.
How different?
I wanted to be a pediatrician and a surgeon. I couldn't be a pediatrician because I will cry if I see a baby or a child crying.
Me
the
too.
first time I gave an IV for a baby, I said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and I put the needle, and believe me, the baby did not cry. I was crying, how dare me to put a needle in a baby, or to, you know, give an injection for, you know, like to cause the pain, and I was, you know, like so sensitive. So that much I love children. So I couldn't be, you know, that pediatrician. And I was much more into surgery. And I love surgery very much. Even my professors used to say my hands like has the skills of an artistic surgeon.
Oh.
Then I was in one of the internships in one of the countries, and during my round, there was a little girl who had thalassemia. She was an orphan, and she had thalassemia major, and her condition was deteriorating, etc. And one day when I saw her in one of the nights, she said that she wasn't sleeping, and I said to her, "Why you are not sleeping, Natasha?" And she said, "Oh, I was talking to God, and I said to him, either to cure me or to take me to where my parents are." So then through the conversation, she asked me if I can promise her to help children like her and people, and not to have more children like her in the world suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, "I do promise you, come and go to bed." She said to me, "If you don't keep your promise, Allah will not like you. God will not love you, etc." So I said to her, "Okay, I will keep my promise." And this is why when I finished my medical degree and started thinking about PhD, I felt like, okay, I need to keep my promise to Natasha and move to genetics. I was thinking about more like a clinical genetics also, but then in medicine, what was you know, attracting my attention, that in medicine we apply what you know, like we just look at results and we apply the treatment. But there are so many questions that are still not answered, and how to serve more patients, how to help more patients. So that's why I felt like, okay, I need to combine medicine and science together in order to be able to serve patients more. And this is something that that's why I went to do a human genetics. I started my my PhD because in science in United States, and I wanted to work on developing techniques for diagnosing test tube babies, or what is now known as pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. At that time, or till now actually, in US, it's not allowed to work on human embryos to do research. So you need to do the research on mice embryos. Then to do, if there is any application, you can apply it on human embryos. For me, that was unethical. So I said, okay, I will go to London. And I came to Britain, and also I faced the same problem, you know, like of the title. But yes, I started my work here and started my PhD, and start working on developing techniques for to detect single gene disorders from a single cell. Of course, the people who are working now in genetics cannot see how lucky they are to be geneticists nowadays. Because my time, we used to do like, we needed to develop the methods for extracting DNA from a single cell, you know, and not only that, but also how to amplify genes or the genome from a single cell. There was a time when I was at university, the time of doing PCR, it was to go through hot bath, you know, this is 70 degrees, this is 95, this is 30 something, you know.
All
so
manual,
like,
right?
Manual, so you
Yeah.
take this like this. So imagine, you know, like you keep spending time and the timer on your hand all the time. So then it became the machines, and you
Thanks
need
God.
to adjust the machines, and it used to take like 4 or 5 hours to amplify for, you know, amplification.
Yeah.
And then we used to put oil on the top, so like to prevent evaporation, the lead, and we need to figure how we can put like a sponge or something on the top of the lead, all of these things. But of course, the people do not see such things nowadays. So it was very difficult for us to develop the techniques to see how we can diagnose. The diagnosis, it was on a plate, meaning that we need to pour gels, and in some cases to use radioactive materials, you know, for sequencing, if it is like sequencing a gene from, or if it is for mutation detection. And then we start using silver staining and other methods of staining. So imagine all of this, how much time it used to be done. And so many people don't see nowadays that in my time, we used to wash the plates, you know, when pouring the gels, you know, so we need to wash the plates. We need to make sure that there is not even like a single drop of anything, and to flow the water in there, and then to autoclave them, to do all of these things, and then to pour the gel and wait God knows how long, you know, till it's set, and then assemble the plates and all of these things. Of course, people do not know these issues, you know. So, and to adjust the buffer, to adjust the pH, etc. And then go, after having the gel, go to the UV light box to look at the results, and then go to the dark room and take a picture, you know, and you take the film and go to the, and develop the negative, and then go to the other room to print the pictures from the negative.
Very cumbersome.
You see how many steps we had? Now people are so lucky. And those who are working with radioactive materials, we used to have like every month those, you know, to measure how much radioactive is in our body, etc. You know, you see? So we had difficult times. Then I was lucky in a time when Pharmacia company introduced the fluorescein PCR.
Yeah.
So I was the first to use it on single cell. And I said, wow, that's cool, you know. And I used to take the train all the way to the company, or travel to the company in Sweden, just to learn and do this, etc. You know, but it was very difficult at that time. But for me, you know, like I use this technology, for example, to know who came into my lab, if I have contamination in my samples. So I sequenced, you know, like I, you know, like, or I took DNA samples from my colleagues, you know. So imagine, so I got into my lab in my absence. In my time, even when we start pre-implantation diagnosis, we had to do everything within 9 hours on the 3rd day of fertilization. So imagine to biopsy. At that time, we used to do mouth pipetting and mouth biopsy. You know, at that time, we used to pull the glass pipettes by ourselves and to polish the end and measure the diameter. You know, we had to do a lot of things, so by ourselves. So in the morning, we will do the biopsy, then do the PCR. Then after the 2nd run of PCR, we will do the gel. And then after the gel running, we need to select the embryos and do the transfer. And all of this has to be done within 9 to 10 hours maximum on 3rd day, you know. So imagine we used to work without any break.
Yeah, on very, very pressure.
So that was my time of genetics, my time of, and we used to face every challenge with a solution. Now the scientists, like if they have a challenge, they will go to the company to solve the challenge for them.
Yeah.
But unlike us, for us, the scientists, we used to create the method, the technology, everything by ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why we enjoy what we developed, and that's why we enjoy like that, oh, we contributed to the development. Of course, so many things came much more automated, like in the late 90s, like the injecting sperm into the egg or the biopsy, etc. All of this became automated in Eppendorf microscopes. And then after that, the ABI machine came in, for sequencing, which it helped a lot in speeding things up. And technology will always be a tool to help, like scientists, but it cannot replace science. And this is my statement. So while people are relying on that technology will help them to, or robotics will help them in, to solve problems, no, it is the scientists and with their work can solve the problem, but technology is a tool to help you speed things up. So instead of spending 10 hours, we can have, 4 hours or 3 hours. So that's my time. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And you know what? My undergraduate degree was in biomedical sciences and partially in human genetics. So in the first years, actually, we do everything manually. And at that time, I hated it. I was like, oh God, am I going to spend all my life in the labs or like, like as you said, like buffering and measuring this and that? I didn't like it. Just when I listen to you now, I admire your passion. But I was like, oh God, what a disappointment. I had to find another way to do, like rather than the science. I mean, I admire you.
Thank you so much.
But as you said, technology cannot replace science or scientists. That's why we are actually taught the manual methods at the beginning. Then we transfer to the full technology. But I didn't like any of them either. So anyway, so thanks God, there are some people who like science deeply. That's why we are so much. We witness so much improvements. Thank you.
Well, well, there is one point here, Mai, that to love science doesn't mean you need to be a scientist. You know, we all are born scientists because we like to investigate. Like a child will say, will always ask why, and the mother will get pissed off from why, and then the father the same. But actually, we like to investigate. Look at the child. Oh, you want to touch this? You want to look at this or that? So actually, we are all born as scientists. We love to investigate. So to love science is in our nature as a human beings, because we are so curious about things. But then whether you can be a scientist is a different thing. To be a scientist, it is a passion. It's not a job, it is a passion.
I can see that.
So in fact, okay, let's put it in this way. You have like Muslim Gürses, the famous Turkish singer. Why he became like so famous? Because he is so passionate about the music, about the songs, So actually he sings from his soul,
Heart.
Why this author or that actor or that artist or that philosopher is more than others? Like why so many people are so into Yunus Emre. Why Yunus Emre touches people's hearts? Because he was passionate about this, you know. So this is the thing. If you are passionate about what you do, if you are passionate about what would you like to achieve, to solve a problem, if you love what you do and you do what you love, then you can be a scientist. You will have that patience, you know. But loving science shouldn't stop you, you know. If you don't want to be a scientist, doesn't mean not to love science. Because science is surrounding us in everything we have in our life, starting from the soap we use every day, to the makeup, to the food, to the houses that we are living in, to the technology we are using now, you know, even the sports. Everything is science surrounding us. So there is a difference between loving science and becoming a scientist. And you are passionate as well about science, but we need people like you who will consider the ethics of science, which is very, very important.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I am motivated. Anyway, I go on the next question. Because, you know, I'm asking this because I know you personally and I know you are a practicing Muslim. When you first started to practice clinical genetics, and you were dealing with the embryos, you know, like gametes and embryos, have you had any questions regarding the moral status of embryo? And could you please tell us about your own reflection on the ethical issues surrounding the pre-implantation genetic diagnosis?
Thank you very much indeed for asking this question. Well, at the beginning, to do genetics and to look at prevention programs, at that time there was only prenatal diagnosis, you know. It was like something I needed to look at, whether it is halal or haram. First of all, I am a Muslim not only because I am a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but rather because I am a believer. I find myself in Islam because I believe in everybody, you know, and I feel that I have my freedom from knowing my rights in Islam. So I am much more into Islam, the philosophy of Islam, the knowing Islam. Alhamdulillah, Hafiz, you know, Alhamdulillah. So understanding the Quran al-Kareem, understanding the religion itself, the ibadah, all of that, gave me freedom on the way I live, the way I do things, and at the same time, the way I look at other things. Now, for me, when I start working on pre-implantation genetic diagnosis or developing techniques or working with live cells, I was faced by something from my supervisor. She saw me after 3-4 months in the lab that I practice my religion. I pray, you know, I fast. So she faced me with something that in Christianity and Judaism, this is not acceptable to do work on pre-implantation on human embryos, or even to do IVF, etc., etc. So, and the whole issue of PGD is not acceptable as well. So she said to me, I don't know about your religion. And at that time I was shocked because, first of all, I want al-ilm alladhi yuntafa' bihi, meaning the ilm that I will produce should benefit people, not to be destructive for people.
Yeah.
The second thing, I don't want to do anything haram. The third thing, my mission in this world as descendant of Rasulullah and Imam Ali, or from a descendant of Ahlul Bayt, is to serve humanity. That's my mission. It's not an honor to live on. So the title is Sharifa is not an honor to live on. but rather a mission from God to serve humanity. So I stopped here and I communicated with, start communicating with these Muslim scholars, with Al-Azhar al-Sharif, Al-Najaf al-Ashraf, with Qom,
In Iran.
And some people might say at that time, like people will say, oh, but you need only Al-Azhar. But I have Muslims who are following different فقه, يعني فقه الجعفري, الفقه الشافعي, الحنبلي, الحنفي, المالكي إلى آخره. So I start going into those scholars, and explaining genetics from A to Z, a human embryo's development, a human development, what are the genetic disorders, etc., and what I'm trying to do. And I asked all the questions that I had in my mind. The imams, Al-Azhar appointed Dr. Sayyid al-Darsh, rahmatullah alayh, to answer the question, all the questions. And of course, in Najaf it was Ayatollah Sistani, and in Qom Ayatollah Tabrizi. So anyway, I received all the answers. I was over the moon at that time. Okay, now, first of all, what I'm doing as pre-implantation diagnosis is permissible in Islam, because it will help the parents to have, normal, healthy children. It is also permissible because, everything is done in vitro before implantation. So this is another thing. And this will not cause a burden on the family, the parents, and as well the child if it is affected with a disease or disability, etc. Because like the dignity of the patient that will be born, and as well like the dignity or the loving, the caring, the psychology, all of that is also considered in Sharia and in fiqh. So that's why it is permissible. The second thing, working on a human embryos in Islam is permissible as long as it serves the human well-being and it is ethical, like to solve a certain issue, to improve the human lives, etc., but not to manipulate or use it for a human destruction. Okay, so this is very strict. Of course, I'm trying to summarize the fatwa for you.
Sure.
And this is from the three main scholars representing Al-Najaf al-Ashraf, Al-Azhar al-Sharif, and Qom, Then this is another thing. The other thing that destroying the human embryos, like say if a patient doesn't want to donate the embryos for research, whether it is the affected one or the normal one, they want it to be destroyed. This is not considered killing. And there is no diya because these are cells. We don't know whether it will become a human being or not. Whether in vivo or in vitro, we don't know. These are just cells. So this is another important issue, which encouraged more like for the research and the development. So because for us, the fetus, the embryo or those cells, consider the human, through the development in the womb, not as cells. And this is the beauty if you read the explanation, like if you grab like this, God knows how many cells you kill.
Or when you comb your hair.
So exactly. So actually, these are cells. We don't know whether they will become human beings or not. It is like the eggs. Would it be fertilized or not? The sperms, We have all these millions of sperms. Is it gonna be all alive or not? You know, so all of these were considered in the fatwas, and I'm so grateful for our imams. Then you have, this is another thing. So also they put that even if you have normal embryos and the mother doesn't want to have the embryos transferred to her womb, nobody can force her to do so. Even her husband cannot force her to get pregnant, because it is her choice, her body, you know, and this is what she wants. But the embryos, whether to freeze them or to destroy, it is by both, you know, like the husband and wife.
Yeah.
So this is about, and this encouraged me to move ahead and encouraged me to publish a book in 1995 in Arabic. It is considered the first Arabic book about genetics. It's called Genetic Malformation in Children, Its Causes, and the Islamic View on Preventive Procedures. You know, so start talking about like even prenatal diagnosis, the end result of it. Is it permissible? Yes, it is permissible before 120 days.
Yeah.
Because the scholars, they looked at the hadith al-arba'inat, you know, and the timing of breathing the soul and etc. Of course, we don't know what is the definition of the soul yet, but still, like the scholars, they, to their ijtihad, they identified that. And also in that book, I translated 30 terms into Arabic, because those terms were not existing in Arabic language, the medical terms. And it became, for like 12 or 13 years, it was the #1 selling book, one of the other than religious books or poetry books in Arab countries.
Was it translated into English so we can read it?
Yes, I have it all. Well, actually, I wrote everything at the beginning in English, and then I did the Arabic, you know, and I combined with this as well the economy, the economic point of view, which was actually mentioned in the fatwas, thanks to our imams, that they explained, they went into deep details that even beyond what I thought or what I asked for. So, and this is the beauty of our fatwa, and the book helped actually a lot in European countries, including United Kingdom and Commonwealth countries, in United States, in some states as well. They used the book, you know, to encourage not only the Muslim, you know, but also to encourage the others to participate in such, you know, preventive procedures. So to work on a human embryos, it is permissible with restrictions. You know?
What kind of restrictions?
As long as it will develop the human life. It's not used for destruction. Like if some scientists want to know like certain things to create like biological wars or weapons or those things, these are destructive sciences. It is not acceptable. It is forbidden in Islam, 100%.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, then if they want to manipulate in the human genome, in the germline or in the embryos, manipulate to change, you know, to create certain problems, etc., not to treat, then this is what is considered, you know, forbidden. So that's why we have restrictions, even like with prenatal diagnosis, even with pre-implantation diagnosis. The imams all said it depends on the expert. You know, like you can decide, is that disease gonna be a life-threatening disease, you know, or it is not.
Yeah.
And the ethics of the person, like to have a child just with certain genetics, just to be a donor for his sibling or her sibling. This is it acceptable ethically?
Yeah.
You know, so it depends on us as professionals, you know, and our ethics, manners, you know, behaviors, not to destroy the human well-being,
Yeah,
rather to improve it.
yes, totally agree. And your wisdom is needed actually nowadays because, as you may know, new genetic technologies like CRISPR-Cas, which has won the Nobel Prize. So it is going to be integrated, I think, into the clinics, both somatic or germline. So actually, it is more responsible for us to ask, like, how we are going to use this technology rather than what kind of technology we are using. Because technology is X, Y, Z. It is going to be this time this and that time that. Doesn't matter the names. What we need to look behind our purpose, actually, our intentions. And my second question, I think you are one of the first clinical geneticists in the Arab world. So could you please tell us about your experiences within the Islamic world as a geneticist? I am asking this question particularly because, you know, in the Muslim world, consensus marriages, you know, between the family members, like the close cousins or distant cousins, the marriages are quite common. So that leads to higher rates of genetic diseases, especially in the Gulf region, you know. So what kind of challenges actually being a Muslim, I mean the earliest Muslim geneticist in the Arab world?
This is a very important question. Thank you so much for asking this question. In fact, first of all, the biggest challenge I faced is when people were talking, like the clinicians who were before me, like pediatricians or internal medicine, faced with some genetic disorders, and then the Western world was talking about consanguinity as a cause of genetic diseases, you know, and our people were just immediately talking about it. Oh, don't marry your cousin because you will have a genetic disease. Your children will have this. And actually, the previous colleagues were like just repeating things without deep knowledge about genetics. So the question to ask, is consanguinity causing genetic diseases in Arab countries or Islamic countries? You know, is it really causing this? Now, you and I know that genetics is a science of probabilities.
Yeah.
So let's assume that we are talking about cystic fibrosis, you know, and which is autosomal recessive disease. So both parents must be carrying the same defective genes in, you know, for in order to have 1 in 4 children with genetic disease. Meaning, it depends on if that egg produced in that particular month carries the defective gene for cystic fibrosis, and it was fertilized by the sperm that has the defective gene for cystic fibrosis, we will have a child affected with cystic fibrosis. If the egg is not carrying this, depends on the cycle now. It is all like a luck. You will have 2 people carrying the same disease and all their children either carriers or normal.
Yeah.
You know? So that's number 1. You know, number two is consequent. That means consanguinity doesn't cause. The second, it increases
The risk.
the risk, but it doesn't cause. The second two is consanguinity the cause of genetic disorders. Unfortunately, there is a huge ignorance about genetics, and we don't know yet about those things in Arab countries, you know, or in Islamic countries. Number one, let's talk about, sorry, I'm just gonna put my phone on silent. So let's put it in this way. I'll give you an example for a Saudi couple that came to my clinic. Both of them from different regions in Saudi Arabia. The girl was saying, I will never marry one of my cousins because I don't want to have a genetic problem with my children. The man who was from a different region was saying the same. It happened through one of the occasions, the families, the mothers met and they arranged the marriage, etc. You know how it works, and they married. Both from different regions, you know, both from different tribes. Their first child was affected with thalassemia. Look at this shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The same thing happens in other countries. Oh, I'm not gonna marry from my tribe or from my cousins.
Yeah.
You know, I will marry this. And funny enough, one of the cases I faced, a guy, a man from Egypt, married with a woman from Italy because he doesn't want to have children with genetic disorders. And they had both a child with genetic disease. Both were carriers for the same disease. Now, is consanguinity causing increasing the risks? That was my biggest challenge, to educate the public. And I was faced by, unfortunately, colleagues who are not specialized in genetics, trying to say, no, 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 this is not correct. So I went to media and I start talking about this. You know, number one, we don't have statistics in our countries. We don't know what are the diseases present in our countries, you know, the frequency, you know, combining it with anthropology, sociology, etc. studies, social studies. We don't know. Once we know all of this, then you can say whether this increase or not.
Yeah.
You know, now in the West, when they said the consanguinity increases the risk, it is like the in Jewish families.
Yeah, Ashkenazi Jewish.
Yeah, so they only marry from the same line to keep them pure. And then you God knows how many times I faced cases where they have, like, the same couple, they carry 4 or 5 diseases.
Oh, very high rate. Accumulation, maybe, yeah.
Accumulation. So but in Arab and Islamic countries, I cannot say that Ma'ida lineage is 100% like from that region or that tribe.
Yeah.
You know, because you will see that we always go back to وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. صدق الله العظيم. So that we have always the marriages from different tribes, from different families, etc., to increase like the relations or to improve the relations. So this is part of our culture and as well in Islamic countries. So that's one of the challenges I faced. You know, the second thing is to educate the public about what it's not to have a genetic disease or a child with genetic disease doesn't mean it is a shame. Aib. It is not aib. It is not a sin or Allah is punishing you because you committed a sin.
Yeah.
You know, but rather there are solutions for that. There are prevention programs, you know, like, and to have genetic disease doesn't mean inherited, but also it can be of environmental effect. Yeah. Like so many people, I was listening once to a program on radio, and the guy, the doctor who was speaking, he was saying that women who are over 40, when they got pregnant, they have children or high risk of children with Down syndrome because of the trisomies. There was a guy who called from the listeners and said, well, my wife is 27 years old, I am 30 years old, and we had a child with Down syndrome. The doctor, because he's not a geneticist, did not say, he said to him, are you sure about the age? Because all what he knows, it is about over 40.
Yeah, no, but it's not.
To correct the mind of the public that they trust the doctors. Because for us, the doctor is Hakim, the wise. You know?
I doubt it, whether it is still the same like Hakim. There is a question mark I shall put. I mean, with the current education, medical education, unfortunately. It should be. Yes. I mean, it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Yeah, but is it? That's another question.
Yes. So, in fact, you know, like that doctor did not know that there can be translocations causing the chromosomes in the chromosomes or etc. You know, so you see, that was one of the challenges I faced in Islamic countries. But while people were talking about everything is a problem, I was using the media, speaking to people's language, going to the public, introduce myself into any other place you can imagine, like between different communities, like just to go and organize conversation with the public, with the into clubs, you know, etc., just to talk to the public. But I was giving the hope for people. I was providing them that this is not a problem, but rather it has solutions. Yeah. So while people are looking for problem, I look for solutions. While people saying this is haram, I went to the imams to investigate, to ask, to learn, you know, to see what can be done. Yeah. You know, this is the difference. And these are the things that could be part of my success in serving people.
Yeah, community, you do.
And yes, and I always, until now, also part of my success in the work I'm doing, you know. So in fact, we need, if we talk about genetics, like now, if you consider the things that are happening in Arab and Islamic countries, it is mainly everybody became like imam or mufti, and they tell you, like, if they read 2 lines in the Quran, they immediately tell you, this is haram, this cannot be done, and they publish papers, etc., without them thinking, without them knowing that, you know, they are crossing the borders of Allah. Yeah. You know?
Agreed.
So this is the thing. For me, I always look at the solution. So it is not haram, it is not aib to have, you know, a disease. It is like any other disease, can be treated, can be prevented. There are, Allah gave us this knowledge, you know, to develop new techniques, and we will always develop, you know, so there is no need to be ashamed of anything. So I played on the psychology, I played on the sociology, and also the hope. The last thing, I was talking the people's language. I'm speaking the people's language, meaning I use the word of Islam, you know, that's number 1. Number 2, like with the Muslim communities, of course, whether in Islamic countries or in Europe or in America. The second thing, I was speaking the people's language. I was understanding them, listening to them, crying with them, having coffee with them, eat chocolate with them, and then speak their own accent That's why my Arabic accent is mixed between Iraqi, Hijazi, Khaliji, Masri, Maghribi,
Khaliji.
Palestini, Urduni, name it, name it. Because this is how many patients I serve.
Yeah.
Yani, for example, if I have a Turkish patient, I will say, oh, hoş geldiniz, nasılsın?
Yeah, you know how to steal hearts. I can assure you on that.
I don't steal hearts, but touch it. Touch it with love and caring.
Yeah.
You're
right.
Yeah, but when you come and say, yes, how can I help you? Of course, they will disappear, yani. It's not an army. Even the army, they teach them, like, not only tamam efendim, yani, they also teach them how to remain human beings, to help people in need. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. We are over our time a little bit, so I will. My final question is, I think it's to your being a royal, like princess, being a doctor, being a Muslim, and being a good human person. So you may answer my question from all these perspectives. What do you suggest for Muslim youth about their careers in science, history, philosophy, theology, ethics, whatsoever, or literature? What is your suggestions for them to be, to be the best or to be better, what they are doing, what in their career? I think nowadays Muslim youth, we are lacking leadership a little bit. I'm not saying totally, but we are still looking for it. So that's why while I find you here online, I just want to ask you, what is your main suggestion, recommendation for the Muslim youth and also the world youth?
Well, I always tell youth, wherever I am, do what you love to do. And love what you are doing. That's number one. Number two, don't copy paste. Don't be just a follower.
Yeah, be original.
Be a leader.
Yeah.
Not like the problem of youth that we don't have. It is like with the discussion of, for example, genetic ethics on gene therapy, germline therapy, or somatic therapy. If you look at the discussions, it is, like it makes you sometimes feel like a bit, like where we are going, For example, somatic gene therapy, is it acceptable or not? Why gene therapy, germline gene therapy is not acceptable? This is expensive, this is not expensive. We always look at the superficial things. We don't look at the jawhar, like at the core of the issue. While people talking, for example, about germline gene therapy, is it gonna be safe? Number one, what is the science behind it? What is the side effect? Because you're supposed to correct one gene, but does it have a side effect on other genes? Because till now, we lack a lot of information how genes interact with each other. Yeah. So before saying whether this is permissible or not, whether this can be applied or not, or to go into the ethics, then I have to question the core of that science, to go into the heart of it. Yeah. Then what kind of guidelines? So let's assume that we reached all of these points. Then what kind of guidelines we are going to have?
Yeah, we should be prepared.
What kind of monitoring the clinics that are using this? It's like when we did the sexing for embryos, it was for X-linked diseases because we did not have time at that time, we did not have the technology that you have now to do specific diagnosis. So it was only for specific cases. What happened? Women or men, the rich, the policymakers, they want boys, they don't want girls. They neglected the doctors who accepted to do sexing for social purposes, that there is no society, neglected the society balance. You see? So back to your question here, why I mentioned this. Number one, the youth needs to ask, you know, not to take everything that is on social media, you know, is for granted. That's number one. Number two, to investigate, to question, to go to the source, to think. Like if you ask youth now about climate change, you know, they will all talk about, oh, climate change. What? Just give me one thing. How you can solve it? They don't know. What caused the climate change? They don't know. Is fossil fuel is bad? You know, they don't know whether it is bad. Everything overconsumed is bad. You see, so these things we need to develop in our youth. Number one, the critical thinking, and to be famous or a beauty queen or whatever, you know, or a celebrity doesn't last for long. What lasts for long is who you are, you know, what kind of things you present. For the Arab and Muslim youth, they need to have confidence, you know, in their countries, in their leadership. This starts with their parents. If they have respect for their parents, then they can see that and they look at their parents as leaders. If they look at their teachers as leaders, not like somebody will say, oh, we don't want youth to be teachers. We want them to be scientists, doctors, engineers, businessmen. What's wrong with the teachers? If it wasn't for your teacher, you won't be who you are. So it starts by at the beginning, if you have the to believe in your parents as your leaders, your family, you know, even if your father is working to clean the streets, he's a leader, you know, because without him we will go into diseases, etc., etc., you know. So we need that in teachers. Then to introduce our history into new style, our history, our people. Okay, you don't need to be a Nobel Prize winner to look at Turkish scientists, or for Pfizer or the British or the American media to talk about you to be, you know, a Turkish scientist. Turkey is full of scientists and amazing people who are contributing throughout the world, throughout history, to the world's development. You don't need to go to Britain or to America or France, you know, to find a role model, you know. Also, our media, our policymakers, I might be criticized after saying this, but this is the truth. As much as we want to learn about history, but we don't need more TV series to show that only the sword. We control the world through the sword. But rather we control the world through education, science, innovation, development. You know, this is how the Abbasi did. Control. We spread. Not everything is through the sword. You know, we never were invaders. In Islam, we do not invade. We defend ourselves. You know, so imagine, tell me how many Turkish movies or Turkish TV series or that the government is supporting to talk about Khalida Adib, the woman who founded Anadolu Agency. And if you ask Turkish girls or youth, they will tell you, oh no, Marie Curie. It is then the government to be blamed. I'm not talking about the current government, generally, any government to be blamed if not to introduce good people, good role models through their media. You know, while we all are so keen, if you look at Abdul Hamid II TV series, it did not go to one important issue in making him a successful and the savior of the empire for 30 years. What is it? Is it that how many times he used to do tasbih? No. It was, he was intelligent in economics, in finance, in trade. Nobody, if you watch again the TV series, they did not show his skills. They just show his skills as, yani in a minute they will make him like a prophet. All the time he wasn't caring about the ummah, just only do tasbih. But they did not bring what interests our youth. You know, which is what? The knowledge, the power of education he had, how he was prepared, how intelligent he was. So how do you want our youth to look at our role models if they keep seeing what? The foreigners knows how to produce hidden figures. When I was begging the Turkish producers, come on, let's produce things about Muslim or Turkish women in science. Oh no, it should be love story. It should be action. But a letter was sent, you know, to Hollywood. We had now Hidden Figures and many other movies like Hidden Figures coming. You see, so they, even their people are not originally from there. Their people are immigrants, but that's fine. You know, at the end of the day, science serves everyone. You know, so to produce role models, you need to be, the role model has to be close to their hearts. We need to educate our children and our youth not to be fascinated by how many pictures you have on social media, or people who, those who have nothing to do, they always promote themselves on social media. Also, we need to look at the role of celebrities themselves, because everybody wants to be famous. Now, I will tell you something. God knows how many times I wrote to Muslim leaders, including in Turkey, you know, just to meet women and men in science once a year in the palace. Habibti, we are not recognized as leaders till we win Nobel Prize, and then all Islamic leaders will come and meet us at the airport after we get Nobel Prize. So how do you want? However, our leaders will die to meet Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, the other guys from, you know, like Hollywood, Tom Cruise, etc. Oh, we will open even the red carpets for them.
Yeah.
So then, how I can create critical thinking or develop a critical thinking in our youth, which it starts in school, universities. If the professor at the university is not recognized enough, you know, if the teacher is not recognized enough, so why those will give from their heart? If there is no money spent for developing, if the education system, if you have money, you put your children in the best schools in Turkey, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Egypt, in Morocco. But if you don't have money, people will look at you, oh, ya haram, a graduate of public school. So you will not have the similar opportunities. You know, nobody will employ you. The private schools will not take you, accept you, etc., etc. You know, so it is a huge problem. It all starts why people are blaming our youth, and why I can see our youth shining everywhere. You know, it is all about the political will, policies to deal with experts when you want to reform your policies. The other thing for the parents who lost their identity, you know, and then for the teachers themselves, which I put a huge responsibility on them, whether they are in academia or they are in schools, that they don't have, you know, they don't take step forward to say, we need to save our children, whether my children or others' children, my society, to take their role as leaders, you know, to help more youth achieve their dreams. And this problem, unfortunately, exists all around the world, you know, because whoever is controlling the world financially, they want workers, they don't want thinkers.
Yeah.
But are we born to be followers? Are we born to be slaves?
No.
Or we are born free? So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really, really lovely to talk to you all about this. We touched actually so many aspects of life, not only academy, science, politics, and ethics or theology, but also daily life. So it was my pleasure to meet you and to have you here today. Thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are actually. So thank you again. If you have any final words.
I would like to thank you very much indeed, and all colleagues working hard. Keep up the good work. This is just the beginning. And I'm so grateful for having me your first guest. It means a lot.
It's my honor.
So much. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Rica ederim.
And the best is yet to come.
Yeah,
I always believe in that. The best is yet to come. You know. And I just want to say one thing through your platform. For everyone, just read. And when you read, understand. Just have peace with yourself. Accept yourself as who you are. Don't try to pretend to be someone else. When you believe in the power of love, your mind will find solutions for any challenge you want. And let's spread the message of love, peace, trust, ethics, and the message of knowledge and education, because this is what lasts from us. When people will go back to our science papers, our work, and be remembered. Like Hakan Hoja, Rahmatullah alayh. And this is life continuation. So bless you all. Thank you very much. And keep this beautiful smile on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.